I remember the first sign that something wasn't right. It was a cold, early spring day in 1922. I stepped outside and saw footprints in the snow, leading from the woods straight to our house. But here's the strange part. There were no footprints going back. I asked myself, who would come all the way out here to this isolated farm and not leave? At first, I shrugged it off. I told myself it was nothing. But the next night, I started hearing strange noises. Low, shuffling sounds, almost like footsteps, but they weren't coming from outside. They were coming from inside the house, specifically from the attic. I told my father Andreas about it, but he didn't seem worried. "It's just rats," he said, "or the wind playing tricks on you." But I knew what I heard. It didn't sound like rats. I kept hearing it night after night, but every time we checked, there was nothing there. Then one morning, we found the barn door wide open. No one had touched it, and all the animals were still there. But that feeling, that eerie, uneasy feeling, was growing. My father started locking everything up tighter, but it didn't help. Things started going missing, our keys, a few tools. My mother, Cecilia, dismissed it as carelessness, but I knew something was terribly wrong. A few days later, the maid, she'd only just started working for us, came to my father and told him she was scared. She couldn't sleep because of the noises in the attic. She wanted to leave, and I didn't blame her. But my father convinced her to stay, telling her it was nonsense. Looking back, I wish we had all listened to her. Maybe then we could have done something before it was too late. The night it happened felt different. The air was heavier, as if something terrible was about to occur. My younger sister, Victoria, and her two children were already asleep when I heard the noise again. This time, it wasn't just a shuffle or a creak. It was louder, more distinct. It sounded like someone was moving inside the house. I got out of bed, my heart pounding. I told myself I'd investigate one more time, but before I could even make it out of my room, I heard a door creak open. I froze, trying to control my breathing, trying to convince myself that it was just the wind. But it wasn't. I turned slowly, and there, standing in the doorway, was a figure, tall and shadowy, holding something heavy. It took me a moment to recognize it, a mattock, sharp and glinting in the moonlight. I didn't have time to react. Before I could scream, before I could move, he swung it, and everything went black. I don't know how much time passed before they found us. Days? A week? It didn't matter. We were all gone by then. My father, my mother, my sister, her children, the maid, everyone. We were all slaughtered one by one, taken by surprise in the dead of night. But the most horrifying part of it all, the murderer didn't leave. He stayed. He lived in our house, with our bodies hidden in the barn. He fed our animals, kept our fire going, cooked meals in our kitchen, and lived among the dead. For days, no one came to check on us. Why would they? We lived so far out in the countryside that we could have gone weeks without anyone realizing something was wrong. When neighbors finally did come, drawn by the eerie silence and the smoke still rising from our chimney, they found us. The scene they walked into was gruesome. Our bodies, cold and stiff, piled up in the barn under some hay. But the killer? He was gone, vanished as if he'd never been there. All that remained was the horror of what he had done, and the chilling fact that for days he had lived in our home after killing us. To this day, no one knows who he was. The police investigated, searched for clues, and questioned anyone who might have known us, but they found nothing. Some believe the killer was someone who knew us, someone who watched us for days before striking. Others think it was a drifter who took advantage of our isolation. All I know is that he had been watching us for a long time. Those footprints in the snow, the missing keys, the noises from the attic, they were all signs that someone had already invaded our home long before that night. If only I had listened to my instincts. If only I had followed those footprints in the snow, maybe we would still be alive. But now it's too late. Our killer walked away, and his footsteps disappeared, just like they had come. And our home? It stands empty, haunted by the memories of what happened within its walls. No one ever moved in again.